Minister.
With permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish to make a statement on North Atlantic activity. Let me begin by thanking the many members of our armed forces currently deployed in over 30 operations across the globe. Their efforts are often unseen by the British people, but they are always appreciated. They defend the very freedoms we enjoy. I agree. Last week, my right honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, revealed details of one such operation. While the focus of many has been drawn to the Middle East, UK armed forces, in partnership with our allies, have been deployed to deter increased Russian activity that we have seen and witnessed in the Atlantic. The specific operation involved a Russian Akula-class submarine and a concurrent deployment of 2 specialist submarines from Gugi, Russia's main directorate for deep-sea research. Last November, the Defence Secretary outlined to the House how Gugi vessels, including the spy ship Yantar, are directed by President Putin to engage in hybrid warfare, activities against the UK and its allies, specifically around critical undersea infrastructure. Their mission is to survey pipelines and cables during peacetime and then potentially, if required, sabotage in conflict. In response to the Russian subsurface activity, the Defence Secretary deployed a Royal Navy warship and a Royal Air Force P-8 aircraft alongside allies and partners to ensure the Russian vessel was monitored during every phase of their operation. The Akula subsequently retreated home, having been closely tracked throughout, and we continue to monitor the 2 Gugi submarines when they were in around UK waters and, of course, beyond. Our armed forces left them with no doubt that they were being monitored, that their movements were not covert as planned, and that their attempted secret operation had been exposed. The 2 Gugi submarines have also now left UK waters and headed back north, and this operation, which lasted more than a month, has now concluded. Madam Deputy Speaker, in often treacherous conditions, our pilots racked up over 450 flying hours, our frigates sailed several thousand nautical miles, 500 British personnel were involved in the response, and I know the whole House will join me in paying tribute to every single person involved. Madam Deputy Speaker, we exposed this military operation undertaken by Russia for 3 key reasons. Firstly, to send a message to Putin that he failed to remain covert and that any attempt to damage critical national undersea infrastructure will not be tolerated and cannot be denied. Second, to demonstrate that even with significant capabilities and personnel deployed in the Middle East, we will always do what is necessary to protect our homeland. And third, to highlight a significant operation carried out by our armed forces, who once again met this challenge with a characteristic determination and professionalism we all know too well. Madam Deputy Speaker, this operation reminds us why the seabed matters, especially for the island nation of Britain. It connects us to everything, and that connection is sustained beneath our waters without interruption through a vast network of cables and pipelines on which much of our way of life relies. Much of the gas that heats our homes, 99% of international telecoms and data traffic, trillions of pounds of global trade each day. And because the seabed matters to us, it's also a prime target for our adversaries. The UK's undersea network is highly resilient, but the threats are increasing, and so we're stepping up our action to defend it, including providing an extra £100 million for our vital P-8 submarine hunting aircraft, launched our Atlantic Bastion programme to combine the latest autonomous technologies with the best warship and aircraft to create a British-built hybrid naval force, and making the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War, after years of hollowing out and underfunding from various governments. Madam Deputy Speaker, the threat is clear, and our resolve to confront it is absolute. And that's why this year we're deploying our carrier group where it is most needed, the North Atlantic and the High North, and why we're supporting NATO's new mission, Arctic Sentry. I also want to put on the record our thanks to our allies with whom we have cooperated closely throughout this operation, including Norway. Our shared commitment to confront Russian aggression in the North Atlantic is at the heart of our Lunar House Agreement, and together we are now building a combined fleet of new submarine hunting frigates and new uncrewed systems. And let me say a few words on Ukraine, from where I've just returned last week. Today, 2 wars on 2 continents are being fought at the very same time. And Putin wants us distracted while he steps up strikes on Ukraine, relentlessly and indeed at enormous scale, with around 7,000 attacks a day on the front line and 55,000 drone and missile strikes last year alone. We must always remember our duty to Ukraine and recognise Russian aggression is growing across Europe once more. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me finish where I began, with praise for our people. We have the very finest armed forces a nation can hope for, second to none. As I speak, we have personnel deployed across every domain, every moment of the day in every part of the world, and they're in constant confrontation with our adversaries from the depths of the seabed to the reaches of space. When a crisis erupts, as it has done in the Middle East, I understand people questioning why all UK military assets and personnel haven't been sent to deal with it. Well, as demands on defence rise, we must deploy our resources to best effect across multiple priorities. Because of an increase in defence investment, we'll be able to call on more and more resource in the coming years. As we defend our interests and partners in the Middle East, we will tackle increasing threats in the High North. We will stand with Ukraine. We will meet our NATO obligations. Above all, we will always fulfil the first duty of government, to protect our homeland and keep the British people safe. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Minister David Reid.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement. Now, with all eyes on the Middle East, let us not forget that Russia remains the most acute, persistent and active threat to the United Kingdom. Putin's goal of conquering Ukraine is unchanged, and the fact continues to place our entire European continent in jeopardy. His ongoing nefarious activity, most notably on our own territorial waters, should be a stark wake-up call. We must start acting on the threats that are visible and right in front of us. Now, we may be critical of the government's tortoise-like approach to giving defence what it needs. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, slow and steady does not win this race, and it certainly does not keep us safe. But what does unite us is the full-throated support for the men and women of the Royal Navy, the Army and the Royal Air Force, who keep the wolf at bay in these dangerous times. And I pay particular tribute to all those who serve in the Middle East at the moment, in recent Atlantic operations, and especially those who crew our continuous at-sea deterrent patrols 24/7, 365 days a year, every year. When the Secretary of State came to this House last year, Madam Deputy Speaker, to highlight the actions of the Russian spy vessel Yantar, he told Putin, "We see you, we know what you're doing, and we will not shy away from robust action." Now, that was the right message. But at some point, simply saying, "we see you," is not enough. Words must be backed by action. This is not just a question of traditional defence. There is a growing and underappreciated threat to our national resilience, to our way of life. Just 65 undersea cables carry 99% of global communications, and a far smaller number of pipelines and interconnectors link our gas and electricity suppliers to others. So can the Minister guarantee there are no hostile devices, kinetic or otherwise, on, near or underneath any of those cables, pipelines or interconnectors? The reality is he cannot. The Secretary of State spoke of confidence that there was no sabotage on this occasion. But what of the many other incidents in UK waters, in the Baltic, in the cables running to North America west of the British Isles, where monitoring capacity is limited at best? The truth is, we don't fully know how secure our critical underwater infrastructure is. That is why we are dismayed that the much-touted Defence Readiness Bill has been delayed by a full year. Worse still, at a time of demanding cross-party unity, it was deeply disappointing to hear the Prime Minister flatly reject the Leader of the Opposition's offer of greater engagement earlier today. That was the wrong call. On Russia's shadow fleet, Madam Deputy Speaker, when the Prime Minister announced on 25th of March that British forces would be permitted to board sanctioned vessels transiting UK waters, we rightly supported that decision. And the Chief of Defence Staff, when asked at the recent London Defence Conference, said plainly, "We are ready." And yet no action has been taken. We set a red line and we have watched Russia repeatedly cross it. Worse, Russian military vessels are now accompanying shadow fleet ships, deliberately escalating the situation. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is deterrence in reverse. The Minister and I know better than anyone else in this chamber the very real challenges of boarding vessels at sea and the serious legal questions surrounding what happens to a ship and its crews once the decision is made to seize them. These are the same challenges that I faced personally while serving in the Royal Marines boarding pirate vessels off the coast of Somalia. Back then, those legal and logistical hurdles were just as real, but it was clear that the global economy was being directly impacted by piracy, that we had to act, and we found a lawful way to do so. So why can't we now, when the situation is far more grave? Now, it's been reported that the Attorney-General has denied the legal basis for interdiction. If that's the case, I ask the Minister directly, what is the current position of the government? And can he tell this House how many sanctioned vessels have transited UK waters unchecked? Russia is brazenly moving military supplies through our own waters. That must be met with robust action, not statements. To conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, today's statement is a start, but only a start. And it's clear the government is not moving fast enough to deter our adversaries. Deterrence requires capability, and capability requires funding. Now, I know the Minister has not had sight of the Defence Investment Plan, but I can at least tell the country when it will be published. 7 months delayed, this is simply becoming a farce. Does he agree with us and the Defence Select Committee that this government must commit to 3% of GDP on defence within this Parliament, not the next? Now, the Conservatives have already identified saving, delivering over £20 billion in additional defence spending. We want to go further, and we renew our offer to work across the aisle to find them. Because the choice is simple. If we are serious about deterring Russia and other hostile states from the High North or our overseas bases, then we must reach 3% on defence now, not later, and give our armed forces the resources they need to keep us safe.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we can agree that no sabotage has taken place this time from the Russian subsurface activity that took place off the coast of the UK. Words backed by action when it comes to deterring Russia. 4.5 billion UK military support to Ukraine, total of 21.8 billion. The UDCG just raised an astonishing 45 billion to buy weapons and munitions and capability for the Ukrainians. The MOD stands ready to board any vessels that meet the criteria. There's a lot of misinformation out there. What I would also say is very expensive frigates escorting every vessel at such range is putting significant demands on the Russian fleet and is also degrading their capabilities. And what I would also say is that we've seen 5 billion extra spent this year alone on the defence budget. And by 28-29, we'll spend circa 73 billion on the defence budget.